The next item of business is topical questions, and at question number 1, I call Ros McCall.
Thank you. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to reports that the COVID-19 lockdowns might have left a generation of children in Scotland with damaged eyesight. Apologies.
Cabinet Secretary Neil Gray.
Thank you, President Officer. The COVID-19 pandemic was the greatest shock to our health and social care system since the establishment of the NHS. The lockdowns were a necessary public health measure to protect life. There is evidence that there is a global rise in short-sightedness, otherwise known as myopia, and this is caused by a range of factors, including more screen-based activities. However, it would not be appropriate for me to speculate on precise causes, although it is possible that the pandemic has exacerbated these.
Ros McCall.
Thank you. And I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. The analysis carried out by Ninewells Hospital and London University following a study of results from 8 Scottish Health Board areas for 3 years before the pandemic and compared them with results post-pandemic. They should be deeply concerning for all of us because the study found that there's been a 42% increase in short-sightedness or myopia in the wake of the pandemic lockdowns. Given it's so unusual for conditions such as myopia to set in at such a young age, these results are concerning. The Scottish Government's See for School campaign is very successful in terms of picking up vision issues in preschoolers. But what information does the Scottish Government currently have on sight and vision standards for primary and secondary pupils?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, and I thank Ros McCall for her question. I agree that the findings are concerning, and of course we would wish to do everything that we possibly can to prevent myopia occurring and to, where it has occurred within the population, address it, which is the availability of our optometry services, the expansion of that happening in the community, the availability of all children aged under 16 and those 16 to 18 in full-time education being entitled to NHS-funded help with the cost of glasses and contact lenses. And I would obviously encourage any parent, I declare an interest, a father of 4, who has concerns about their child's vision, to arrange a free NHS eye examination with an optometry practice, and also strongly encourage children to undertake as much outdoor play as possible, as those are areas that are and have been assessed to assist in preventing myopia happening in the first place and also assist in its rehabilitation.
Ros McCall.
And again, I thank the Cabinet Secretary for the response and for the tone which he has taken on this matter so far today. The study is very wide-ranging and has found a clear link between short-sightedness and living in urban areas with a large number of flats. For example, children living in Greater Glasgow and Lothian Health Board areas have been found to be twice as likely to be myopic as those in the Highlands or Ayrshire or Arran. International examinations, such as those conducted in China, where lockdowns were particularly strict, are also showing a sharp increase for 7- and 8-year-olds. With all of these worrying trends, there is now a louder call for sustained and repeated testing programme to be rolled out at slightly older years, including 7- and 8-year-olds. So does the Scottish Government agree that an extended testing programme should be considered? And will the Cabinet Secretary report back to Parliament with any results of any in-depth studies regarding this public health issue?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you. Again, I thank Ros McCall for a question. Vision is one of 8 developmental domains assessed by a health visitor during Universal Child Health Reviews at 13 to 15 months, 27 to 30 months and 4 to 5 years. And health visitors can provide appropriate intervention in response to any concerns at those stages. We've also, in 2023, launched our Early Child Development Transformational Change Programme. It supports the provision of oversight and better integration of policies that contribute to early child development, with a focus on prevention to re-emphasise the importance of pre-birth and early years. But I absolutely take the point that Ros McCall makes around the evidence that she points to elsewhere, and of course that's something that we would continue to consider.
Bill Kidd.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And I'm grateful that the Scottish Government, as has been said by the Cabinet Secretary, are committed to ensuring that everyone in Scotland is entitled to receive free NHS eye tests, particularly children and young people, to ensure that preventative care is offered to those who need it before their eyesight worsens. Can the Cabinet Secretary advise on how the Government will build on Scotland's world-leading eye care service going forward?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, President Officer. I thank Bill Kidd for the question. The Government is committed to delivering new enhanced services which utilise the capacity of community optometrists to manage more patients closer to home, reducing the burden on hospitals and GPs. And we've got provision for that that's about to be debated within the budget provisions that we set out for next year. We're already rolling out a new community glaucoma service which provides the capacity for lower-risk glaucoma patients to be discharged from hospital and registered instead with accredited community optometrists. And we'll also expand our free universal NHS eye examination service in 2025 to support independent prescribing community optometrists to manage patients with more complex acute anterior eye conditions who are currently normally referred to hospital.
Thank you. Martin Whitfield.
Very grateful, Presiding Officer. The Cabinet Secretary will, of course, be aware of the C for School programme that gives an orthoptic vision test before preschool at 5 years old, which he has made reference to. There is, of course, the very successful National Dental Inspection programme, NDIP, that operates between Primary 1 and Primary 7. These highlight potential challenges that young children are getting into, and it allows an interface from the school to assist with their education as well as health. Would the Cabinet Secretary be willing to meet members across this chamber regarding both the ophthalmic research but also the dental research to see how actually there can be a better interlink between those health that's being discovered and the education needs of children?
Secretary.
In the interest of brevity, Martin Whitfield points to a range of successful interventions that have been taken forward that have made a real difference in children's lives and their ability to interact at school. And of course, either myself or Public Health Minister or Education colleagues would be more than happy to have that level of discussion on a cross-party basis.
Thank you. Question number 2, Faisal Chowdhury.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what discussion it has had with the banking sector regarding how to ensure that communities do not lose access to banking service in light of report that Lloyds Banking Group plans to close 14 Bank of Scotland branches over the next 2 years.
Minister Richard Lockhead.
Ministers were concerned to hear the decision of Lloyds Banking Group to close 14 Bank of Scotland branches across Scotland. Any reduction in branches raises concerns for the affected employees and regarding access to services, particularly for rural communities, vulnerable individuals and digitally excluded customers. The Scottish Government regularly engages with the banking sector, including the regulator, through ministerial meetings and the Financial Services Growth and Development Board, and we will raise this at the next meeting with Lloyds Banking Group. In October 2024, I convened a cross-party roundtable on access to cash and banking services in Scotland. The banking group attended alongside other banks and sector representatives, including the FCA, Link, Cash Access UK and the Post Office. This provided a common understanding of Scotland's specific challenges and a basis for consistent engagement as the new regulatory regime embeds.
Faisal Chowdhury.
I thank the Minister for the answer. With these closures, communities across Scotland, including Wester Hills in Edinburgh, will lose access to vital financial service, particularly older and vulnerable people who cannot access online services. Does the Minister agree that in-person banking is an important public service, not just business decision? And what recent discussion has the Scottish Government had with the FSA on this issue?
Minister.
The member is quite correct to raise those concerns, and they are shared by the Scottish Government and indeed across the Chamber. Of course, the FCA, the regulator, which is a reserved issue to the UK Government, did introduce access to cash rules recently in response to concerns expressed by no doubt communities the length and breadth of the UK, but including particularly in rural Scotland and in some Scottish communities. And that's why it's important, as the Lloyds Banking Group, I understand, have done, they engage with Link and the regulator in terms of their announcement. And a number, of course, of the announced closures have alternative arrangements will be put in place, but that will not address all the concerns that will be expressed by communities, and that's why financial exclusion continues to be a concern for us all.
Faisal Chowdhury.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I have previously been contacted by constituents regarding bank closures in Bathgate, where a banking hub is now planned to open. But while over 600 banks have closed since 2015, there are only 21 banking hubs in Scotland. Can the Minister advise how the Scottish Government is working to identify areas most in need of banking hubs and what representation are being made to speed up their roll out?
Thanks. The job of identifying such areas falls to Link under the new access to cash rules adopted by the regulator, the FCA, and any member who has concerns that these issues are not been adequately addressed since the bank announced its decision to close those branches should urgently contact Link to ensure there is a reassessment of the needs locally, and I recommend any member to do that.
Gossel.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. My region of the West of Scotland is not immune to Bank of Scotland branch closures. Closures are expected in Bishopbriggs, Kirkintilloch, Alexandria and Helensburgh. In Helensburgh, this will represent the closure of the last in-person bank branch. This will be devastating for many of my constituents, especially the older constituents who are unable to use online banking. Therefore, I would like to ask the Minister what the Scottish Government is doing to fight digital exclusion and to ensure that people have access to banking services locally they require.
Minister.
Thank you. Can I just say to the member I very much identify with her concerns, not least the fact that my own constituency was one of the hardest, if not the hardest hit constituency in the whole of Scotland in terms of bank closures in recent years. In terms of what the Scottish Government has done, we spoke to the regulator, held that round table. We were very keen for the access to cash rules to be updated, to be stronger. And of course, the new rules were introduced a few months ago by the regulator. So in the case of Helensburgh, for instance, I note that a banking hub will be introduced there. That may not go all the way to satisfy these concerns, and I absolutely understand that, and these are reserved matters in terms of regulating the banks. I know there's a banking hub in Forest in my constituency that has been popular. So these measures have resulted from ongoing dialogue with the Scottish Government and others, with the UK regulator and Link and others who have a say in this. And I would urge the member to contact Link if she's got any further concerns that they're not going far enough.
Okay.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. In addition to the communities that Pam Gossel has mentioned, in particular in places like Barrhead and Bishopbriggs, in my region, the Bank of Scotland is the last remaining branch on the High Street and the last bank in the town. So would the Minister recognise the particular pressure that puts and the disadvantage that puts to local communities that there is no banks left in these communities? And whilst I understand the Scottish Government cannot compel the bank to remain open, will he ensure that in his discussions with Bank of Scotland he impresses on them the importance of access to cash in those communities? Minister.
I will certainly ensure that happens, and I share the member's concern that as technology moves apace and people turn to digital banking in greater numbers, there is a danger that people are left behind, and that's why the Scottish Government is also funding a number of digital inclusion projects, working with the voluntary sector as well, and that, of course, is a very important part of this. In terms of Bishopbriggs, I think the member mentioned, understand the banking hub is to be introduced there, but in terms of the wider concerns, I'll absolutely ensure they are conveyed to the bank.
Thank you. Question number 3, Kevin Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I refer members to my register of interests and declare that I am a member of Unison. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to reports that mental health absences among ambulance crews have risen in Aberdeen and other parts of Scotland.
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, President Officer. Can I first of all take this opportunity to put on record my thanks to all NHS and social care staff for their incredible service. In this case, we discuss issues being faced by paramedics, which I absolutely recognise from the meetings the First Minister and I held over Christmas, as well as the visit I paid to the ambulance service in Edinburgh before Christmas. Healthcare services are under significant pressure, and we must ensure that support is sustainable and aligned with staff needs. We will continue collaborating with leaders and staff in healthcare to identify and address areas of stress and actions to provide support. Staff wellbeing is absolutely paramount, and from 24-25 the Scottish Government are dedicating over £2.5 million annually to support staff wellbeing. Since 2019, the Scottish Government has invested over £480,000 in the development and implementation of the National Lifelines Scotland programme.
Kevin Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Ambulance stacking at Aberdeen Royal Infirmary has caused a great deal of stress for ambulance crews, according to a paramedic that I listened to yesterday, and this, of course, has consequences. What is being done to improve patient flow at ARI to improve this situation, and has best practice from elsewhere been brought into play in Aberdeen?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, President Officer. I absolutely recognise the scenario that Kevin Stewart outlines and the impact that ambulance stacking has on staff across the system, but in particular around paramedics. Officials have been meeting with the executive team at NHS Grampian to discuss actions taken to ease pressures. The central aim is to improve patient flow through the system from the Scottish Ambulance Service into Grampian's acute sites and back into the community as soon as patients are fit for discharge. The Scottish Ambulance Service and Grampian's Health and Social Care partnerships have been collaborating to implement their unscheduled care improvement plan, and the Centre for Sustainable Delivery are also providing support to Grampian and have identified opportunities within their acute system for a more efficient use of inpatient capacity and learn from best practice elsewhere.
Stewart.
Thank you, President Officer, and I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. People I've talked to in the past few days have been highly complimentary about our paramedics and the job that they do. But what more can the government do to ease the strain and improve the well-being of ambulance crews? And what measures in the Scottish budget will help in this regard?
Cabinet Secretary.
I absolutely share those compliments of our ambulance service staff, and I think I set out as such in answer to Kevin Stewart's first question. The 25-26 Scottish Budget, which we will just hear about shortly, if agreed by the Scottish Parliament, will provide record funding of £21 billion to health and social care. This includes an increase to Scottish Ambulance Service provisions of more than £88 million, taking their baseline funding to £437.2 million for 25-26, which will help the service continue to develop, enhance capacity and deliver high-quality patient care across Scotland. Further, our wellbeing services include a 24/7 compassionate listening service through the National Wellbeing Helpline, self-guided resources via the National Wellbeing Hub, confidential mental health care through the Workforce Specialist Service and access to psychological therapies.
Thank you. And Carol Mockin.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. In Ayrshire and Arran, ambulances have had to wait more than 5 hours before patients can be admitted due to lack of capacity. Insufficient workforce planning has meant NHS services have been unable to cope with high pressures and demand. This clearly links to the mental health pressures placed on ambulance crews. Despite this, newly qualified paramedics are being forced to relocate due to shortage of job opportunities in Scotland. Now, surely the Government recognises that better workforce planning would help alleviate some of the pressure felt by the ambulance service. So can I ask the Cabinet Secretary what steps he is taking to ensure Scotland fully benefits from the investment made in paramedic education and training?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you. I thank Carol Mockin for a question. She'll recognise that we've increased investment into the Scottish Ambulance Service, which has resulted in an increased number of paramedics being employed by the Scottish Ambulance Service, and the provisions that we're setting out in the budget would allow for, as I said in answer to Kevin Stewart, the Ambulance Service to continue that investment and maintain capacity. Of course, in the points that she's raised around training, I'd be more than happy to engage with her further on that point.
Thank you. That concludes topical questions.